Hi, Coach. Thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to interview you and see what's going on in your world.
Thank you, Dina. It's a pleasure, and I greatly appreciate being part of the history of Army women's basketball. So thank you.
Okay, I'm going to hop right in.
Sure.
Tell us the story of how you came to be the head coach of the women's basketball team at Army, and why did you say yes to the position?
Well, long story short, I grew up as an athlete, four sport athlete in Western New York. Played college ball and just had a passion for coaching. So my journey was very interesting. It was a little bit unique in the fact that I have family that was military, including my dad that was in the Air Force. But really, honestly, didn't know about the academies till I had an opportunity after I played college ball at Fredonia, started my coaching journey, and was started Division III and worked my way up. I had an opportunity to go to the Naval Academy as an assistant coach and an officer. So I coached there for 3 years, had an opportunity as a, instant ensign, so to speak, Lieutenant JG, helping kind of rebuild that program with Joe Sanchez and Joe French back in the day, and Deb Schlegel, who hired me. And it was just an awesome fit, being part of the military, the academies, and being a role model for young women. So after that, pursuing my career, I went back, as a college coach to St. Bonaventure. Had a 2-year stint there back near home. And at 30 years old, had the opportunity to be the head women's basketball at West Point. And it was actually, we had some, I remember a very intense interview process, but some connections with Colonel LaBeouf at the time, Master of the Sword, who her dad, actually, Professor Keenan, was a professor at St. Bonaventure. So, long story short, it was a dream come true. It was a great fit for me. And I think definitely helped me pave the way for understanding the culture at West Point. So that's kind of how it all happened.
Wow, what a great story.
You know.
Okay, so when you started, what was your initial vision for the basketball program? And then how did that vision evolve over your time at West Point?
Well, my initial vision, I had known the program, and I know, Lynn Chavarro was the head coach before me, and we're still the best of friends. The program has ups and downs, as we know, as we, college athletics. But the time I had taken that over, the program was down. They hadn't been successful, unfortunately, in a few years. I know before that, Lynn did a great job. So I knew I was stepping in a situation where we had to totally rebuild the program. And so the vision for me, honestly, in hindsight, I look back, it was crazy because I know my assistants and myself basically were working around the clock 24/7 to restore the pride and the tradition of Army women's basketball. And the first year was, it was a challenge. I knew we won a few more games. The second year, we were right there. We were more competitive. We had our first recruiting class in, and I remember we beat Navy, which, turned in the
Yeah.
time, obviously, which if you can see, I have my beat Navy shirt on, but which is kind of interesting, right? Being a Navy officer, but things had shifted as the head coach. And then it was the third year, having a couple recruiting classes in, that we finally turned the tide. And I think it was about 19 wins that year. And ever since that point, it took the third year, we were very competitive.
hmm
So over my course of my 7 years there, I believe I got hired in 1998
hmm
and was there to 2005. We built that program from the bottom up, and I knew we were on the cusp. We were very competitive toward the end of my tenure, and we're on the cusp of doing what my goal was to go to the NCAA for the first time ever.
hmm
And so that team, things happen in hindsight. If I could go back and do it again, I would do it in a heartbeat because, at 30 years old, I think you're learning.
hmm
Um, and so that, I take a lot of pleasure in the young ladies that I help hopefully shape their own lives, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Some marquee players, but that I take a lot of pride because that team that, when I left, and obviously Maggie came in, that was my program that we built.
Mm.
that went to the NCAA tournament. So, it got cut a little bit shorter than I wanted. But the experiences, between West Point and the Naval Academy over a 12-year span were unparalleled. Like there's no words. And still to this day, I have very dear relationships and friends, but nothing but pride, to not only serve my country, but to be in that role.
Awesome. Well, what were the unique challenges and opportunities of coaching at West Point and then Navy also? How did the opportunities and challenges impact your program?
Well, as it's I don't want to say we were a minority, but we were, I think at the time, I think the women there were about 12%. Um, and again, I was the only head female coach of all those sports at West Point. So obviously we had other coaches, but I was the only female. So I was very young, I was very ambitious. The challenges, the hurdles, as kind of being in a man's world. I hate to say it, but it was. And it wasn't that I wasn't supported or embraced, but it took time to put people in the stands. It took time to just empower those young women and the trials and tribulations of going through West Point just to be more than what they could be. And you know, it it just was an awesome journey. And I won't get into the discrepancies and salaries and things like that because I remember at the time, a lot of the relationships I had with the other coaches that mentor me, like Jack Emmer, who was, it's ironically, he has a place in St. Augustine, so do I. And, just some of the coaches along the way that mentored me. But there was challenges. I know the men's program, I think they went in my tenure through 3 coaches there. And just trying to just equal things out, get people in the stands, and just build. But I don't want to say it was hard. I mean, I had my nose to the grind. It was, but being a strong female, and I remember, and I also went through 3 athletic directors,
Mm.
and that's always a challenge. And we had some awesome people in charge there, but I remember often, especially Rick Greenspan, who I have still the utmost respect as an AD, because he'd always say, Sherry, pick your battles, pick your battles. And if I heard that once, I heard it 20 times. And now I understand it. I don't think back at the time being so ambitious and so eager and so driven that I always understood that. But we made it happen. And again, in hindsight, if I could go back and do things a little different, I probably would have, spent more time building those relationships a little bit, versus being so driven to win. And but my philosophy has always been the same, and it was developing players, but it was developing players of character, which is obviously the mission of West Point.
Totally. So, what were the key milestones and successes for your program that most define your coaching career at Army? And what are the few of your most vivid memories of your Army women's basketball experiences?
It's funny you say that because I was trying to remember back, because over my time, I mean, I've been almost, I think it's my 38th year coaching now, and
Wow.
at all levels. Army was so everything you did. I mean, you lived there, everything you did every day. Always obviously the first thing was to beat Navy. And I believe, and I don't want to misquote, but I think it was the second year we came close, because Joe Sanchez at the time, who I coached with and I was coaching against,
Mhm.
Army hadn't beaten Navy in a long time. And it kind of was the way when we were at Navy, we kind of flipped that role too. So that was the first thing. I mean, as well as I do with people that had been close but hadn't had success. I mean, I think we only won 9 games that year, but you would think we just went to the NCAA tournament because, you know how it is, 4,000 people in the stands. And so that was kind of the start of the turning point. Um, I think the next was just the recruiting piece, recruiting nationally, our getting key players, and one of them I'm still the best friends with this today is Katie McFarland, who's Katie Graves. I mean, she was one of the first to have her jersey retired there. She was a marquee player for us, and I remember it. and I took a lot of pride being a Western New Yorker. So she was from Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
And she had opportunities to go mid-major, but it really came down to us and Navy at the time. And there was no way I was losing a fellow Western New Yorker, to Navy being at Army. So, there was a lot of people along the way. She wasn't the only one that paved the way, but she was obviously a very special player. Again, we still stay in the best of contact. She had that journey. She played with the WNBA with the Connecticut Sun, I believe for about, I think it was 5, 6 months, which was awesome on top of being an All-American lacrosse player. But those memories, those key things, are just unparalleled. And, going to several of my players' weddings, seeing them have families, seeing how things come full cycle. Those are all highlights.
Mm.
The wins and losses, honestly, if you ask me, Dina, I mean, I remember several, but I don't remember all of them. I remember being down in the Patriot League tournament at American. I think we were in the semifinals and we made a last second play. It was kind of like a ball out of bounds. I set a back screen and we made the home run pass to win at the buzzer. Those were steps in the program in the right direction. And just, I think the other thing, if you ask for highlights, if you saw the program I inherited, which were great young ladies, the other focus I had over my 7 years there was to become more diversified. And we did, just making our program more, diverse, especially, young, inspiring women again that could be the best they could be. So
Mm.
um, it was just an awesome experience, and I miss it. I
Yeah,
miss
I
it.
bet. Special time.
People, I still love coaching, and like I said, I've been at all levels. I'm now back at my alma mater. I've been an AD at the college level, Division II, Division III. I've been an AD at a high school where I came in St. Augustine and coaching and teaching. And everybody always says, ironically, why are you not back in college coaching until now, which I did my alma mater, but they said, do you miss your days? What do you miss the most? And without a doubt, it was always my experiences at the academies. It's just, they're unparalleled. The pageantry, the camaraderie,
Hmm.
um, just the quality.
Very good. Thank you. So you're talking now about you're still coaching women's basketball, which is very cool. So where are you coaching now? What are your goals for your team and for you personally going forward?
So yeah, I'm back. Again, full cycle. I'm back in Western New York at Fredonia State University, where it all began. And so I live out here. I still have my place in St. Augustine because I was there the last 20 at St. Joseph Academy. And I had an opportunity to come back at my alma mater. The program was in decent shape. I knew the former head coach and the assistant, Rich Norton, who we actually were friends. And I came back because one, I knew the program. Two, I knew him and I trusted, again, about surrounding yourself by good people. I actually have one of my also former teammates I played with, Mary Barkowski, back volunteering, helping me. So I'm back, and a matter of fact, today's the 19th. It was a year ago and one day, the 20th, that I hit the ground running and took this job.
Mm.
So I made a big jump. I still have my place in St. Aug, but it was my significant other, Roger, I've been with for, I don't know, about 12 years or so, and he knows my passion for coaching. And he just looked at me and said, "Listen, we'll make it work. You love coaching. You need to be back in coaching." And so I made the jump. And so I'm here. We had a great group of young ladies last year. We were competitive in the SUNYAC, which is State University of New York.
Mhm.
And I think people don't quite understand that how good Division III ball is up here. No, it's not Division I, but kind of like the academies, we play, because they love the game. They're not playing for the scholarship money. They're good at, get students, but they play like I played for the love of the game. So we were competitive. Had my first recruiting class and now new 7 players, which we're going to be a lot better. So I'm excited, excited. Great group of girls. Honestly, probably the hardest working team I've had other than West Point. and I mean that sincerely. So my job coming back, I said I'd give it a couple of years to get these guys back to a SUNYAC competitive title. They haven't been in a long time.
Hmm.
My vision is to make the tournament this year. It's tough competing against the like Cortlands of the world that are the halves and the new pulses. But the goal is to make the tournament this year, top six go, and then the following year being the top three to win a SUNYAC title. So, yes, I have lofty goals. That hasn't changed.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's really doable. It really has. It is.
Well, you've seen basketball for a lot of years. So, how has the whole game changed over the last 45 years? How does the transfer portal and NIL affect,
Yeah.
women's basketball? And then have any of those issues changed the way you coach?
Well, Dina, it's all changed is the answer to your question. We're just getting hit at the D3 level with the transfer portal. Actually, I have one transfer this year, Jakira Stackhouse out of Syracuse. And honestly, I'm not a big believer in people jumping ship. I'm not, because I think I've prided myself on the values and morals and commitment, which is, again, I think my strength of the coach has always been developing players. And which is what I loved about being an Army, which I loved as far as even high school and back at Division III, because you can develop players.
Mhm.
The transfer portal kind of negates all that because these kids coming in, I mean, literally you can have a new team every year.
Mhm.
So it's obviously changes your philosophy. I think it changes your relationships with people.
Mhm.
Um, because people often ask me that, why would you not go back to D1? And quite honestly, not to say never, but I'm more fulfilled doing what I do at this level for the love of the game. So yeah, it's changed. It's definitely changed. I mean, you see it, I was at the Final Four this year in Tampa. You see it even with Gino. I mean, I coached against Gino Oriamo back in the day. I spent time with Pat Summit. Um, those, and he's adjusted his game. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to, because the game has changed. The game also, in my opinion, is so much more. These players are so ahead compared to where we were
Mhm.
because they've been playing year round since they were small. So the opportunities, even watching the WNBA now, which I loved, watching the Indiana Fever in particular, not just because of Caitlin Clark, but because what Stephanie did with that team chemistry, with all those injuries, right? And they kept
Mhm.
fighting.
Yep.
So, the game has just, oh my Lord, it's grown so much, and just the opportunities for women. It's exciting, and it's fresh breath of fresh air for me to see, because again, kind of regressing way back when in the day, when I was at Fredonia, there was not a lot of opportunities for women. I interned with the Buffalo Bills for 2 years during those four Super Bowl runs with public relations. And I'm still very much a diehard Go Bills fan. But we didn't have those opportunities for women, and that's when I decided, hey, I'm going to go finish my master's and I'm going to be an athletic director, because I just didn't want to be somebody, second fiddle. Because we didn't have, the WNBA wasn't alive back then. We didn't have those opportunities. So it's all changed. And I think in a very positive way. Are we still, even WNBA, are we still as women's coaches underpaid? Yes. I
Mhm.
mean, 100%, you know that, I know that. But I never did this job for the money, although you would like to be compensated, right?
Mhm.
I've done it for the love of the game. And but yes, you asked me about how I coach now. I think everybody that knows Coach N, and that's what I've always gone by. Even my high school kids, I coach them hard and there's high standards, but I think I am a more user-friendly and nicer version at 58 than I was at 30. So
Very
it's
cool.
been a journey. So
Okay, Army's got a new coach, and
yep.
I just wondered, just from you, looking back, what advice would you give future coaches of the Army women's team?
Well, I'm hoping to talk to her. I have not. I had a chance to talk to our last coach, and ironically, I want to say this. You talk about things coming full cycle, right? So right now, there is a young lady on that program, a freshman, a plebe, um, Kelly Kremer. She played for me at St. Joe's. I put her, helped get her in prep school,
Mm,
and she's there now as a freshman. So I stay in touch with her. Um, and I'm very proud of that because I think, again, she's going to do great things there for you guys. So I would love to talk to your new head coach and the fact, because I know she's young.
mhm,
And I think it's just a matter of, I think coaching is X's and O's, and I get that. But again, in hindsight, it's about relationships and it's about maximizing, your student athletes' potential, but to enable them, to empower them to be more than what they can be. So, my suggestion again, and I learned trial and error, surround yourself by good people and especially your assistant coaches.
mhm.
So, and I'm not gonna belabor that, but surround yourself by people that are on the same page, on the same vision, and just enjoy the journey. Like I think we work so much, we work so hard that I just wish I would have enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
I do. I do. So, that's my advice. Stay true to who you are. Everybody has, there's 100 different ways to be a successful coach. And even as I mentor now, coaches coming up through, the advice I give is be true to who you are, but have high morals and standards. But develop those relationships again to enjoy the journey, because life is very short
Mm.
and to just empower women. I just think we're at such a awesome time to do things that you and I didn't necessarily have those doors open, right? So that would be my advice, and to let her know as well that anything I can do to help the program, I certainly am happy to share. So I wish them nothing but the best of luck. I think it's awesome, and I plan on being there. I will get up there, despite, we're in season right now, and I actually am going to a team bonding building with my team today this afternoon. But I want them to do well and just to use your resources, because I think, especially at the academies, you have so many resources and people, just knowledge that can help you and just give you, a little bit here and there. Um, so I will say that. And the other person I know is no longer with us. I had a great mentor in Dr. Jerry Krause, who was he spent a lot of time with Gonzaga, but he mentored me. He was actually on my interview committee
Mm.
and working in the PE department. And here's a Hall of Famer that was a volunteer assistant on my staff for a few years at West Point. Um, Again, those relationships and that knowledge that they had were so invaluable for me. So I would just say to use the resources that you have.
Thank you.